Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt like you were giving so much? Your time, your heart, your softness? And yet, you weren't sure if he was really there with you. Not physically, but emotionally. As if you were showing up with your whole soul. And he was kind, maybe even affectionate. But there was something missing. That invisible thread of intimacy. The fire that makes a man feel you long after you've walked out of the room. You see, most women believe that a man falls in love with their beauty, or how well they take care of him, or how available they make themselves. But emotional addiction, that magnetic pull he can't shake, it's not built on how much you do for him. It's built on how you make him feel about himself when he's with you. Not every woman knows how to create that. But once you do, once you understand the language of emotional intimacy, the kind that speaks to his deepest longings, you won't just be the woman he loves. You'll be the one he craves. Tonight we're going to dive into that sacred art. 5 ways to make a man emotionally addicted to you, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that awakens the parts of him he didn't even know needed you. Let me tell you a story. There's a woman I once worked with. Her name was Anna, early 40s, stunning in that quiet, self-contained way that makes people want to lean in. She was in a relationship with a man who, by all accounts, adored her. He called, he checked in, he showed up on her birthdays and remembered her coffee order. But every time she looked into his eyes, she felt this ache not because something was wrong, but because something important was missing. I don't want him to just be with me, she told me. I want him to feel me. I want him to think about me when I'm not in the room. I want to live in the corner of his mind where no other woman lives. That right there is what this conversation is about. See, emotional addiction isn't about control or seduction. It's not about games or playing hard to get. It's about being unforgettable to a man's nervous system. The way he feels when he hears your voice. The way his body softens in your presence. The way you touch his inner world and make it feel like home. Most women are trained to be good, to be pleasing, to be agreeable, to be easy to love. But the women who live inside a man's bones, they are the ones who bring him back to himself in ways he didn't even know he needed. So, what are those things she does? What makes a man need you, not out of dependence, but out of deep soul-level connection? Let's start with something so simple it often gets overlooked. She sees him. No, not just sees him. She witnesses him. You see, men move through this world starving to be understood. They walk around in bodies armored with responsibility, silent expectations, and decades of being told to man up. What they long for, often secretly, is to be allowed to take off that armor and still be respected. Not pitied, not mothered, respected. When you can reflect a man's inner truth without needing to fix him or judge him, you become medicine. When he tells you something small, maybe about how he still remembers his father's laugh, and you don't rush past it, but instead say, that sounds like it really mattered to you. You've just created a portal, one that very few people ever open for him. Men become emotionally addicted to women who can hold space for their truth. This doesn't mean you become his therapist. No, that's not sexy. But it means you know how to listen beneath his words. You're not just listening to his stories. You're attuned to what he's not saying. You sense when he's carrying weight. You gently touch the grief behind his jokes, the fear behind his silence. And you don't press, you just stay with it. Warm, unmoved. That stillness, that knowing, that presence is intoxicating. But let's not stop there, because seeing him, truly witnessing him, is only one piece. The next layer, you challenge him, not in a combative way, not by nagging or outsmarting him, but by inviting his edge. Let me explain. A man will become emotionally addicted to the woman who doesn't let him shrink. The one who believes in his greatness more than he believes in his comfort. The one who, when he's about to settle, simply looks at him and says, that doesn't sound like you. It might sting in the moment. It might make him bristle, but deep down it ignites something powerful. His longing to be more, to expand, to grow. Men are hungry for purpose. And when a woman becomes the mirror to his potential, not his flaws, not his failures, but his future, he doesn't just respect her. He can't forget her. It's the woman who holds him accountable to his own greatness, not through control, but through trust that leaves an imprint. And don't be fooled. This isn't about achievement. You don't need to date a CEO or an artist or a millionaire for this to be true. Every man has a fire inside him. And when you see it, when you name it, when you quietly expect him to live it, he starts to associate that fire with you. Now imagine this. You're sitting across from him. Maybe it's a lazy Sunday morning. Coffee between you, sunlight warming the floor. And he says something offhand like how he might apply for that promotion or how he's thinking about moving to a new city. Instead of reacting with fear or asking, what about us? You pause, smile, and say, you've always been built for more. Go get it. That moment, it's not loud, it's not grand, but it echoes. Because you didn't make it about your insecurity, you made it about his truth. And that kind of belief, it's rare, it's unforgettable. So now we've opened two doors, the woman who sees him and the woman who challenges him. But I want you to feel how these are not separate acts. They're threads in the same tapestry. When a man feels both safe and inspired in your presence, when you hold him in his softness and call him into his strength, you become his emotional home. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not a formula, but it is a pattern, and patterns become identities. A man will eventually begin to associate your presence with his own aliveness. And that, my love, is where emotional addiction is born. Not out of desperation, but out of transformation. Because when a man realizes that who he becomes in your presence is the man he's proud to be, he will crave you not just with his body, but with his entire being. Now breathe that in for a moment. This isn't about what you say, it's about how you relate. It's not about always agreeing with him or never challenging him. It's about weaving a dance where his vulnerability doesn't weaken him, it deepens him. The woman who knows how to do that isn't just a partner. She becomes his mirror, his muse, his soul's echo. And as we move deeper into this conversation, I want you to hold one truth. That emotional addiction isn't a trick. It's not a performance. It's about authenticity. When you show up fully, both tender and fierce, playful and wise, you invite a man to do the same. And in that space, love becomes addictive. Now let's lean a little closer, because there's something we haven't talked about yet. Something subtle, almost invisible, but wildly powerful. It's the energy of mystery, of unpredictability, of the unexpected turn. One of the most emotionally addictive things a woman can do is not always be fully figured out. Now wait, this doesn't mean being vague or evasive. I'm not talking about games. I'm talking about the capacity to surprise him, to not be so fully known, so completely defined that he stops feeling curious. You see, the human brain craves novelty, and this is just as true in love as it is in art or adventure or music. When a man knows that there are still places within you he hasn't explored, moments of laughter he hasn't heard, depths of insight you haven't yet shared, parts of your past you reveal only when it feels sacred, he stays enchanted. Men are drawn to women who aren't desperate to be understood immediately, who aren't handing over their entire history in the first week, hoping to be accepted. No. The woman he becomes addicted to is the one who reveals herself in layers, slowly, naturally, almost accidentally, like a book that gets more interesting with every chapter. And this doesn't mean being aloof, it means being rich with inner life. A woman who doesn't revolve around him, who has passions and quirks and ideas and inside jokes with herself, who has rituals. Maybe she reads poetry at midnight, maybe she dances barefoot in her kitchen to Nina Simone, maybe she has opinions about constellations or street graffiti or ancient cities she wants to get lost in. Whatever it is, it's hers, and it means he will never stop discovering her. Emotional addiction, real addiction, isn't rooted in validation. It's rooted in fascination. And here's the paradox. The more you need someone to see you, the more you often disappear in your effort to be seen. But when you stop performing, when you truly inhabit yourself, you don't need to convince him of your worth. You radiate it. And that glow, that's what keeps him thinking of you long after he closes his eyes. So here's the question I want you to ask yourself, not just once, but over and over. When was the last time you surprised yourself? Because when you're alive in your own curiosity, in your own erotic pulse with life, you become contagious. And that is what creates the third thread of emotional addiction. The woman who is deeply connected to herself, not lost in him, not orbiting around his needs, but grounded in her own. You know, so many women ask me, how do I get him to fall deeper? How do I make him want me more? And I always answer with a gentle truth. He needs to see how much you want you. Because when a man watches you delight in your own presence, when he sees you light up when you talk about something you love, your art, your solitude, your friendships, your dreams, it's magnetic. When he knows you're not just waiting for him to invite you into life, but you're already fully living, he can't help but want to be near you. And when he's near you, he doesn't just feel desire, he feels expansion. So here's a secret. A woman who is emotionally addictive is rarely the most available woman. She's the most whole woman. Her life is not empty, waiting to be filled. It's full, and he gets to join it. This doesn't mean being too busy for him. No, it means you know how to enjoy your time alone. You know how to rest in your own skin. Your joy is not dependent on his presence. And paradoxically, that's what makes your presence irresistible. Because when you show up from fullness, not hunger, you're not trying to impress. You're not grasping for attention. You're not silently begging to be chosen. You're choosing yourself every day in 100 small ways. And when he sees that, when he feels that, he doesn't see a woman who needs him to feel valuable. He sees a woman so valuable he wants to be chosen by her. You become the one he brags about, not because you inflate his ego, but because being next to you makes him feel like a better man. Now let's take a breath here, because I know what you might be thinking. But what if I do want him to choose me? What if I want to be loved so badly? It hurts sometimes. That's okay, love. That's human. We all long to be held, to be chosen, to be seen. But emotional addiction isn't built on craving. It's built on connection. And connection starts with you. So instead of performing for his love, I want you to become intimate with your own. What do you long for? What nourishes you? What makes you feel sacred? Because the fourth layer, perhaps the most misunderstood one, is sensuality. Now let me be clear. I'm not just talking about sex. Sensuality is the art of presence. It's the ability to awaken the senses in every moment. The woman who makes a man emotionally addicted isn't just the one who turns him on in bed. She's the one who turns life into an experience. She walks into a room and you feel it. The way she touches her wine glass, the way she tucks her hair, the way she notices the shape of the moon, or the way he rolls his sleeves. She's not trying to be seductive. She just is seduction, because she's awake to everything. And when a man is around a woman who is deeply embodied in her own sensuality, who smells the world, tastes it, hears it, plays with it, he doesn't just fall for her. He falls for the way she makes life feel. And here's the beautiful twist: the more alive you are in your senses, the more alive he becomes in his. That morning coffee, it tastes better when he's with you. That late night drive feels deeper. That Sunday nap feels sacred, because you are not just present, you are pleasure in motion. And that is unforgettable. So we've arrived at this delicate balance. You see him, you challenge him, you remain unpredictable, you stay rooted in your own aliveness, and you invite him wordlessly, effortlessly, into the sensual dance of presence. And maybe by now you're starting to realize this isn't about tactics. It's not about chasing. It's not about how to text him or what to wear or how to make him jealous. That's surface. Emotional addiction runs deeper. It's about who you become in love, not just who you attract. Because the woman he can't stop thinking about is the one who taught him how to feel again. She didn't demand it. She didn't beg for it. She simply lived it. She lived with depth, with mastery, with joy, with edges, with desire, and he followed. It's fascinating, isn't it, how the deepest connections don't start with declarations. They start with feelings, subtle shifts in the air when you enter a room, the silence that doesn't need to be filled, the sigh of relief he lets out when he's near you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're present. You've already felt it before. Maybe with someone you didn't even expect to affect you so deeply. It wasn't just the way they touched you. It was the way you felt when you spoke to them. As if you didn't have to pretend, as if your flaws were seen and still invited. That's the secret ingredient so often missed in conversations about romantic addiction. It's not just passion, it's safety. Yes, safety. And I want to say this carefully because many women misunderstand the word. They think creating safety means being predictable or agreeable. But true emotional safety doesn't come from being easy to please. It comes from being emotionally safe to be around. That means you can hold space for complexity. You're not reactive. You don't explode when he opens up. You don't weaponize his vulnerability or dismiss his pain. Instead, you do something rare. You stay with him, not to rescue, not to fix, but to understand. When a man senses that he can be fully human with you, that his fears, his dreams, his childhood scars, and his quiet moments are not only tolerated but cherished, he stops posturing. And that's when something extraordinary happens. He doesn't just crave you because of how you make him feel. He craves you because of how you allow him to feel himself. In a world that trains men to suppress, deny, distract, and perform, to find one woman who gives him permission to feel and not feel judged for it is like oxygen. You become his sanctuary, not because you agree with everything he says, not because you never challenge him, but because your presence says this: you don't have to be perfect here. You just have to be real. And when that happens, when that door opens, it's very hard to close it again. Because addiction, emotional addiction, is rarely about what's rational. It's about the subconscious safety and intimacy he feels with you, feelings he may not even be able to explain. Think about it like this. When we are young, we crave attention. But as we grow, what we truly long for is resonance. We want someone who understands the music of us, not just the words. Someone who knows when to lean in and when to let us breathe. The woman who makes a man emotionally addicted doesn't cling. She doesn't smother. She attunes. She knows the dance. When to be soft, when to pull back, when to invite him, when to walk beside him silently without needing to fill the quiet. She doesn't chase. She evokes. Because she's not trying to make him need her. She's simply living in a way that makes him want her close. And here's the truth no one tells you: when you become a space of calm, creative, emotional honesty, where his nervous system can exhale, you create an imprint in his memory that no surface level relationship can replace. You become the moment he compares all other moments to. So many women ask, how do I get him to miss me? And I say, give him an experience of himself that no one else can. That is the ultimate addiction. Not what you do for him, but what you awaken in him. Now, I want to share something tender with you. Something a man once told me in session. He said, I don't know what it is when I'm around her. I feel like I can just exist, not perform, not impress, just be. And I haven't had that since I was a kid, maybe with my grandmother or something. It's not even about sex. It's deeper than that. It's like I don't know who I am without her reflection. Now hear that. He wasn't talking about dependency. He wasn't talking about someone who made his life easier. He was talking about emotional homecoming. And that's the final layer of emotional addiction. Not lust, not novelty, but home. We all want to be understood, yes. But more than that, we want to be felt. And when you can feel a man, when you're not just present with his words, but with his being, when you can intuit when he's tired or proud or overwhelmed without him saying a word, you become the one who knows him. And to be known, truly known, is the rarest thing in a man's world. Now, I want to be clear. This does not mean you erase yourself. It does not mean you become his emotional crutch. Quite the opposite. It means you become your most emotionally alive, embodied, self-sourced version. And from that wholeness, you connect with his soul, not his ego. And he will feel the difference. He won't feel manipulated. He won't feel chased. He will feel magnetized. Because it's not about power. It's about presence. It's about showing up in a way that says, I don't need to own you. I don't need to fix you. I don't need to change you. I just want to know you. And in that moment, he's not just attracted, he's addicted. Because you have entered a place in him that most people never reach. The quiet place. The soft place, the place that remembers pain and beauty in the same breath, and the woman who finds that place and doesn't try to control it becomes unforgettable. So ask yourself, can you love a man without trying to fix him? Can you hold space for his depth without being afraid of your own? Can you stay rooted in your feminine power and still surrender to connection? Because emotional addiction is never born out of desperation. It is born out of resonance. And the more you love yourself at that level, the more you make it safe for him to meet you there. And when he does, it won't be fireworks. It will be something quieter, a poo, a whisper, a truth. And he'll find himself wondering why he can't stop thinking about you. Why every song reminds him of your laughter. Why every moment of peace feels like your arms. Because that, my love, is the kind of addiction no man ever wants to break free from. There's something about a woman who doesn't chase love, but invites it. She doesn't hurry. She doesn't perform. She just is. And in that stillness, she becomes unforgettable. You see, a man might be intrigued by beauty, amused by charm, and even seduced by mystery. But what makes him stay, what makes him emotionally need a woman is presence. And presence, real presence, is rare. It's the kind of energy that walks into a room and shifts it without speaking. The kind of energy that makes time slow down, not because she's trying to take up space, but because she is so grounded in her own. This woman doesn't just feel silence, she blesses it. She doesn't speak to be heard. She speaks when there's something sacred to say. She listens, not to respond, but to understand. And when she touches a man, she doesn't just touch his skin. She touches the parts of him that feel unloved, unclaimed, unspoken for. She touches his loneliness, not the loneliness of being without a partner. The deeper kind, the loneliness of being unseen, even in a crowd, even in a relationship. And when that kind of woman sees you, really sees you, without shrinking or demanding, it does something primal to a man. It rearranges him. It softens the walls he didn't even know he'd built. It brings his guard down, not with effort, but with trust. Because she doesn't invade, she invites. And she doesn't invite just anyone. She invites the part of him that most women ignore, the part that's scared, the part that's tired, the part that just wants to rest, to be held, to breathe. That, my love, is the kind of emotional addiction that is never loud. It's slow. It builds like rain. It's the ache he feels when he looks at his phone and wishes it was your name lighting up the screen. It's the comfort he remembers at 3 a.m. when sleep won't come. It's the memory that plays like a melody when he closes his eyes. And you created that. Not because you played a role or followed a rule or chased validation, but because you brought yourself, your full self. And now let me speak to something equally important, the kind of woman who doesn't apologize for her depth. She doesn't water herself down to make others comfortable. She doesn't pretend she's low maintenance just to keep a man around. She doesn't laugh at things that insult her soul. She doesn't shrink in the presence of his uncertainty. She stays rooted, soft but unshakable. Because here's the truth, men may chase pleasure, but they crave depth. They crave that rare woman who brings both delight and gravity, who can laugh with him in the kitchen and also look him dead in the eyes and say, I want more from you, from me, from this. And it's terrifying for him, for anyone to be seen that clearly. But it's also holy. The men who are ready will stay. And the men who aren't, well, they were never ready for your magic to begin with. Because the fifth and final thread of emotional addiction is reverence. Let me say that again, reverence. The woman he becomes emotionally addicted to is the one he can revere, not idolize, not control, not conquer, but revere. She's not a fantasy. She's not an object. She is fully human, but she walks with so much dignity, so much inner clarity, that being near her feels like a privilege, and not because she demands it, because she embodies it. She speaks with care. She chooses her energy. She honors her time. She doesn't beg to be chosen. She selects from a place of sovereignty. And when a man encounters this kind of woman, one who respects herself deeply, tenderly, Without hardness or ego, he starts to feel something ancient inside him awaken. He wants to show up better, not because she asks, because she inspires it. He wants to protect her, not because she's fragile, but because her heart feels worth guarding. He wants to hold her, not just to touch her body, but to feel close to her spirit. And that is when you've crossed the final threshold. You've moved beyond attraction, beyond desire. You've entered sacred territory. He doesn't just want to sleep with you. He wants to pray in your presence. He doesn't just want your body. He wants your essence. Because now you've become more than the woman he wants. You've become the woman he remembers. And memory true, emotional memory is stronger than lust, stronger than logic, stronger than almost anything else. Because when you leave a man better than you found him, when you open him, soften him, call him, challenge him, see him, hold him, you're no longer just a chapter in his story. You become his turning point, the moment everything changed. And it's not because you were easy. It's because you were real. You didn't ask him to carry you. You walked beside him with your head high and your heart open. You didn't beg him to love you. You loved yourself in front of him so powerfully that he began to believe it was possible for him too. And maybe, just maybe, that's what emotional addiction really is. Not obsession, not control, not manipulation, but this whisper inside his chest that says, she made me feel more alive, not because she gave me herself, but because she gave me permission to be myself. And that is a feeling he will spend his whole life trying to get back to. You know, I think we spend so much time trying to figure out how to make someone love us that we forget the real power is in how we love ourselves while being with them. There is something deeply erotic, yes, erotic about a woman who does not lose herself when she loves, a woman who knows how to remain whole even while giving deeply. That is not coldness, that is emotional maturity. That is the birthplace of emotional addiction, not in the fiery crash of drama, but in the consistency of emotional safety, mystery, inspiration, and depth. Because the truth is, a man becomes emotionally addicted to you when he doesn't have to stop being himself to be with you. When he feels like he's not being edited. When he feels like he's not performing, when he sits next to you and realizes, I've never felt more like me than when I'm with her. That's not something he finds often. That's not something anyone finds often. And if you've been that kind of woman before, maybe for the wrong man, maybe for the right one at the wrong time, you know how that level of connection doesn't just feel romantic, it feels spiritual. And perhaps that's what we need to say out loud. Emotional addiction isn't about mind games or tactics. It's about creating spiritual intimacy in a world that's obsessed with the physical. It's about showing up with your nervous system regulated, your heart soft, your mystery intact, and your voice clear. And if you're wondering what that looks like, it's this. It's when you answer his text not because you're trying to keep him interested, but because you want to respond from fullness. It's when you look him in the eye and say no with love, not because you're trying to withhold, but because your boundaries are sacred. It's when you cry in front of him, not to manipulate, but because you trust him enough to let him see you. It's when you support his vision, but never shrink your own to fit his dreams. It's when you take up space and let him meet you there. Because that's the final piece, the part no one tells you, that a woman's capacity to create emotional addiction lives in how unapologetically she takes up space in his heart, in his life, in the world. And taking up space isn't about being loud, it's about being honest. It's about sitting at the table of love and saying, I am here, I bring depth, I bring joy, I bring complexity, and I bring standards. You see, the women who are unforgettable are not the ones who were easy to get along with. They are the ones who required a man to rise, and when he did, he met himself in the process. And that, my love, is the addiction. It's not to you as a person, but to the version of himself that he can only access when he's with you. The woman who evokes that is rare. She doesn't force, she evokes. She doesn't invite, she doesn't scream for attention. She commands it with her presence. She is soft and wild and kind and non-negotiable. And she never begs, she chooses. So, if you've been sitting there wondering why some men disappear after getting what they want, or why others seem drawn to you but never stay, maybe it's not because you weren't enough. Maybe it's because you've been leading with performance instead of essence. Maybe the real question isn't, how do I make him love me? Maybe the question is, who do I become when I stop trying to be loved and start being deeply myself? Because when you do, when you live in your sensual truth, your quiet power, your open-hearted sovereignty, you won't need to get him addicted. He'll feel it in his body, in his chest, in his bones. And that feeling of being seen, inspired, safe, and awakened, it doesn't fade. It doesn't wear off. It lingers. He will go into other relationships trying to find it. He will scroll through old photos, thinking of the way your voice steadied him when his world was spinning. He will smell someone's perfume on the street and pause just to chase the ghost of your presence. Because when a woman makes a man feel like the most sacred parts of him are loved, she becomes his compass, his refuge, his addiction. And there's no dopamine hit that can compete with that. Now, if this touched something inside of you, something deep, something ancient, I want to invite you to speak it. Let this not just be another video you scroll through. Let this be a beginning. Drop a comment below. Share your truth. Tell me where this met you. Tell me what you're ready to embody. And if you know another woman who needs this reminder, who needs to know that she doesn't have to perform to be worthy, who needs to remember that her softness is strength, send this to her. Be that mirror. And of course, if you want more spaces like this, spaces where we speak about love not from fear, but from fire, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel, join the community, because this space, it's for women who are done dimming their light to be palatable. It's for women who are ready to burn. Here's to being unforgettable, not because of how loud we are, but because of how deeply we love. And if you take nothing else with you tonight, take this: he becomes emotionally addicted not to the woman who gives the most, but to the woman who makes him feel the most alive. Now breathe that in, let it settle, and remember, you are not here to beg, you are here to become, and he'll feel it, he already does.